Hello everyone, today we're looking at how to fill in Venn diagrams. We're going to look at three different examples of how to go about doing this, and we're going to look at some key tips as we go along to make it easier for ourselves. Now the starting point over here is the question I have in front of us where we have 100 pet owners are asked if they own a cat or a dog. So when we're talking about this, it's 100 people in total, 41 people own a cat, so 41 own a cat, 65 own a cat, a dog, or both. 65 own a cat or a dog, or both. And then we have the fact that 11 people own both. So, kind of our key bits of information over here. Now, when you come to a question like this, a lot of people think, oh, where's the best place to start? Now, for me, I think the best place to start with any Venn diagram question is the intersection. Always start with the intersection or the middle. This is for any Venn diagram question, this is where I advise always filling in at the beginning. Because I think there's a lot of mistakes that can get made early on. So when we talk about the intersection, that means this middle bit here, this thing where people own both a cat and a dog. And we can see underlined in red that 11 people own both a cat and a dog. Now, if we look at the bits that are underlined, the next thing we can say is, well, 41 people own a cat. Now, a very common mistake is to say, oh, okay, this is a cat, this is 41 over here. But that's not quite right, because the people that own a cat are everybody within this circle, which means that these 11 people also own a cat. So really the 41 should be representing the cat in total. That means this section over here should be 41 minus 11, which is equal to 30. So 30 people own just a cat. Then if we look at the next piece of information which we can use, it's the fact that 65 people own a cat or a dog or both. So these 65 people, all of this two circles need to add up to 65. So if we see here, this is 30 and 11 making 41. That means 65 take away the 41 gives us a value of 24. That means 24 people own just a dog. So we filled in the inside bit of our Venn diagram. Now there's one piece of information which we have not used yet, and that's the fact that there are 100 pet owners that are asked in total. Now, if there are 100 pet owners, we look at these numbers, 30, 11, and 24, we know that they add up to 65, which means that whatever's left must be the remaining pet owners. So if we think about 100, take away the 65, we end up with a value of 35 on the outside. So there are 30 people that own neither a cat nor a dog. And that is our full Venn diagram filled in. Now there's a few questions underneath asking for the probability that someone owns a dog. Well, the people that own a dog are the people inside this circle, which is the 24 and the 11 out of the people in total, which is the 100 pet owners in total, which is our total value. And that gives us 35 out of 100. So not to be confused with this 35, that just refers to the 35 inside of here. You can simplify that if you want to, which would give you 7 out of 20, or you could leave it as 35 out of 100. Now, the other one is the probability that someone owns only a cat. Now, only a cat is the people that are just in this portion over here, because these people own both a cat and a dog. Therefore, that is 30 out of 100, which is equal to 3 out of 10. And that's our first example. Now, I'm going to bring about a second example, which is a bit more complicated, but it still follows the same premise. And this time it's going to be a Venn diagram with 3 different sections to it. So we have over here a 3-person Venn diagram. It tells us that 50 people were asked about artists that they like. So our total in this case is our 50. Now it says that 20 people liked Drake, 16 liked Bruno Mars, and 14 liked Taylor Swift. So I'm going to kind of highlight this in green. Now the 20 for Drake means everyone inside the Drake circle. The 16 for Bruno Mars is everyone inside the Bruno Mars circle. And the 14 for Taylor Swift is everyone inside the Taylor Swift circle. So all of these circles have their values that we need to add up to. It then tells us that 9 people liked Bruno Mars and Drake. So 9 people like Bruno Mars and Drake. It tells us that 10 people liked Bruno Mars and Taylor Swift, and 2 people only liked Taylor Swift over here. And then finally, 5 people liked all 3 artists. Now, my piece of information, my key advice last time around was to always start with the intersection, which is the middle of these 3. Now, the intersection are the people that liked all 3 artists. So if we fill in the intersection first, our value over here is equal to 5. That is the people that liked all 3. Now, the next thing we can fill in is generally easier to go from down to up. To fill in the 20 or the 16 or the 14 requires other numbers. So if we look up above, it says 2 people only like Taylor Swift. That means this bit here, these are the people that only like Taylor Swift. That is equal to 2. Now, as we go up, it says 10 liked Bruno Mars and Taylor Swift. So if we look at the circle of Bruno Mars and Taylor Swift, again, a very common mistake would be to write down the 10 over here. But that's not the case because these people also like Bruno Mars and Taylor Swift. So all of this over here needs to equal to 10, which means that if this is 5, this must also be 5, making our 10 over there. Now, similarly, on the other side, it tells us 9 people like Drake and Bruno Mars. 9 people like Drake and Bruno Mars. That means all of this has to add up to 9. And if all of this adds up to 9, then this has to be 4. We can see now 4 plus 5 is equal to 9. Now from that, we've done these bottom 3 areas. The last thing is to fill in, or the next thing is to fill in these bits, or the different areas which we can fill in. It says 20 people liked Drake. Now that requires us to have knowledge of these two. So we can't do the bit about Drake yet. But 16 liked Bruno Mars. Now if 16 liked Bruno Mars, it means this whole circle here has to add to 16. So if we take Bruno Mars 16, which gives us 4, 5, and 5 is equal to 14, which means that we have 2 left over to make our 16. Similarly, we know for Taylor Swift that 14 people like Taylor Swift. Over here, 14 people. 5 plus 5 is 10 plus 2, giving us this over here, which is our 14. And now we have enough to work out the people that like Drake, which refers to 20. And then we've got 4, 5, 2. That gives the value of 11, meaning there are 9 left over to make our value of 20. Now, once again, the last piece of information which we haven't used yet, we've used the fact that this was equal to 14. We've used the fact that this was equal to 20. We haven't used the fact there are 50 people in total. So when we look at this, we can see that all the numbers inside here, 9 plus 2 is 11, plus 2 again is 13, plus 2 again is 15, 20, 25, 29. There's 29 people so far, whereas the total needs to add to give 50. So there are 29 in the circle, there needs to be 21 on the outside to make our value of 50 in total. 9 plus 21 is 30, 35, 40, 42, 44, 46, and 50. And that is your Venn diagram filled in. Now those are sort of our 2 scenarios where we're given the intersection. But what happens in a scenario where you're not given the intersection? That's where things change a little bit. And that's what we're going to be looking at next. This is now our final example. And we have over here a scenario where it tells us that there are 100 students in year 12. 70 study French, 60 study history, and 10 study neither. Now, we said previously, first place to always start is the intersection. Always look at that intersection first. However, we don't know what the intersection is. What we do know is that there are 100 in total. So I'm going to put that 100 up here. We know that there are 70 that study French. That's 70 inside this circle. That's all of that. And we know that 60 study history. So 60 study history, which means this circle over here is going to equal to 60. But we can see there's a problem. We don't know how many do both. We know how many study neither. So actually we could say if 10 study neither, we could put that on the outside, but we haven't started with the intersection. Now, if you don't know what something is, call it X. This is always the case. If you don't know what something is, we call this value over here X. That is our unknown. That's the value that we don't know. And from that, we can now work out or use algebra to work out the rest. Now, if this whole circle is equal to 70, and this is X, this must be 70. 70, take away X. So that circle over there is 70, take away X. Because if this was 10, this would be 60. If this was 20, this would be 50. It all needs to add up to 70. Similarly, on the other side, if this whole circle is 60, this must be 60 minus X, because that circle has to add up to 60. Now, because there's algebra in here, it means we're probably going to need to use some sort of equation. And the key thing here is that we know that in total, there are 100 students. So what we can say is that all of these things together have to add to 100. So we can say 10 plus 70 minus X plus X plus 60 minus X is equal to 100. And now if we collect our like terms, we've got 10, 70, and 60. That makes 140. We then have minus X plus X, which cancels out, and then minus X, which is equal to 100. So minus X is equal to 100. Now 140 minus a value gives us 100. And well, the answer to that is 40. And we can see that if we rearrange this, technically, this is 140 minus 100 is equal to X. And so from that, X is equal to 40. So if we now know the value of X, we can actually sub into our Venn diagram. If this value over here is 40, I can now change that or write underneath the value of 40. That means the circle on the left-hand side is equal to 70 minus 40, which is 30. And then the circle on the right-hand side is equal to 60 minus 40, which is 20. We can see 10 plus 30 is 40, plus 40 again is 80, plus 20 is 100. And effectively, that's what it is. What we've done there for each of these cases is always start by looking at the intersections. Always the first place to start. And then from there, use your understanding of problem solving to work out the other values. Anyway, I hope that's made sense. If it hasn't, please leave a comment below or message me directly. Thank you very much for watching. Take care and goodbye.